is dependent on our past karma because our past karma produces this life, but liberation itself is not produced by past karma because of the simple reason in Advaita Vedanta, liberation is not produced. Liberation is our very nature, mukti, moksha swarupa, the very nature of the Atman or Brahman, what we are, not the body, not even the mind. Our Atman is ever free. Now what this world, our past karma and our sadhana, all of it can produce is the knowledge which will drive away the ignorance hiding the spiritual fact of our pre-existing liberation. Daily life problems will remind us the only alternative is to suffer. Often, why do we come to spiritual life at all? If the world was perfect, if it can keep us engaged and happy, and then why look for anything else? But it can't. After some time, either the suffering becomes so intense or you've got whatever you wanted and you're not satisfied. Then you start looking for something more. Is there anything more after you have enjoyed everything in life, which one can reasonably desire? Then do you want to keep on repeating that endlessly? Or our human nature is to seek something higher and better always. So we seek for something higher and better. Or the reverse. Suffering becomes so intense, you really want to release from that suffering. And therefore one seeks, is there a solution to suffering? That's what made Prince Siddhartha into the Buddha. He had both of these. He was a prince. He had all the pleasures and power which one could want, as in those days, a monarch had absolute power. And that was not satisfying, but he was engaged in all of that, but it was not satisfying for him. On the other hand, he saw this old person, a diseased person, and a dead person. So old age, disease, death, and these are universal. They come for everybody, and they are all full of suffering. Is there any solution to suffering? Not so much for himself, because he was having a good time, but he knew that the world around was pervaded by suffering. So whether you are enjoying or suffering, both of us ultimately drive us to this question about ultimate reality of spiritual life and the falsity of the world. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. Sarvam Dukkham. It's all pervaded by sorrow. Even if you say, no, I'm having a good time, well, you're not seeing deeply enough. There is sorrow lurking there. The good time is going to end. Therefore, it is sorrow. To produce that good time, you have to work really hard, maybe earn money or use your past karma to have a pleasant time now. And that struggle is sorrow. And the good time, you get used to it. And so it's not so much fun the next day and the next day and the next day. And therefore, it diminishes. And that is sorrow. And these good times are habit forming. And there's a price to pay for that later on, and that is sorrow. So the Buddha said everything here is pervaded by sorrow. Yes, the bad and the good may both be relative. I won't say they are false. Let's use the word relative. They are relative. However, they are not equal and they are not unimportant. Yes, we are Brahman, but right now it doesn't seem to be so. If it seemed to be so, if it was an obvious fact, then our problems would be solved forever. But it's not an obvious fact at all. It's something that we read about, hear about. Maybe we get an inkling about it. Maybe we get some understanding about it sometimes. Then how do we make it a reality for ourselves? Or at least, even if it's a reality, how do we come to see it as a reality? How do we use it to go beyond suffering? First, at least for ourselves, if not for everybody else. And that's where good and evil come in. So from a Vedantic perspective, it is true. Both good and evil are relative. However, they are not equal. Evil takes you away from your own reality. Evil takes you away from spiritual life. And so evil produces more and more suffering. And good takes you towards spiritual realization. And here I'm talking about the good and evil in our own life. Then we'll talk about the world later. But in our own life, so it's not true that good and evil are equal. It doesn't matter. Both are illusions. Does the good act have, why should I go to the trouble of and the sacrifice of performing a good act if it has no value at all? No, it has the greatest value. It will take you, it will do you good in this life, it will do good to society and ultimately take you to liberation and freedom. So good is the basis of spiritual life. We can put it this way. Good is the foundation of God. So G-O-O-D, without goodness, spirituality is not possible. And the more mischievous and evil we are, the more we drift away from spiritual life. And the more deliberately good we try to be, the closer we are to spiritual life, to closer we are to God, to enlightenment. Notice that even when people are pretending to be good, somewhere in them is the idea that it's good to be good, I want to be good. Even if it's just for getting praise from others. But the very fact that you can get praise from others for being good shows that good is valued in society. So being moral, being good is an instinctive value attached to it, to that. Now, the difference you asked was about the difference between trying to be good and to be really good. It's a very interesting distinction that you drew out, and it's very important. Trying to be good is when my intentions are right, or at least partially right. I want to tell the truth. I want to lead a disciplined life. I want to do good to others, lead a life which is helpful to others. And the trying comes in because I have also these instincts in myself which prevent me from doing so. Maybe if I tell the truth, I'm going to lose something. People might not like me so much, or I might stand to lose financially. Maybe when I try to lead a disciplined life, the pleasure instinct gets the better of me, or the laziness instinct gets the better of me. Maybe when I try to do good to others, a kind of selfishness takes hold of me. Why should I spend my hard-earned money for others without any visible return? So this is what makes it a struggle. This struggle is called trying to be good, as distinct from what you called really good. Now that's interesting, because in Vedanta what we would say is, once the samskaras are purified, then predominantly our samskaras become good samskaras. Then the trying becomes less and less. So then to be good becomes more a question of, it's effortless now. It becomes part of my character. In fact, then trying to be bad would be an effort. So there comes a time when most of the samskaras are good and the life becomes transformed. You would call such a person, you'd call that person a saint. So it's all a matter of training yourself, and the samskaras, what one person has achieved, others can too. Sri Ramakrishna used to live near the bank of the river Ganga, and he would see these little boats plying up and down the river. And he saw that the boatman, they had big oars, poles, and they would have to push against the riverbed to push the boat out into the river. And that was hard work against the current of the river. But then he noticed, once the boat is in the current of the river, the boatman would sit back, and Sri Ramakrishna gives a graphic description. The boatman sits back, holds on to the rudder, and smokes a hookah. So that means he's merrily floating along. So there is a phase of struggle, and once you are in the midstream, you can just hold on to the rudder and guide the boat along the way you want to go. The effort is much less then, which means in the initial years, you are changing your samskaras by working very hard, and once the samskaras are changed, things go more in our favor. And then others might think, how is this person doing it? I mean, I used to think, how are the senior swamis rising so early in the morning and meditating for hours? I feel so sleepy. It's habit. It's a change of samskara. You do it, you'll be like that in no time at all. It seems to take years, but afterwards when you look back, it just got transformed soon. And there's this Zen story which I like of a monk who went to learn from a Zen master, meditation. Okay. And the Zen master said, you have to purify your mind and so on and so forth. After some time, the student came back and said, it's hopeless. Whenever I sit, my mind is full of bad thoughts. And the master said, you have to try and do this. Here is two heaps of very polished white stones and black stones, little pebbles. And whenever an unwanted thought comes into your mind, take up a black stone and put it in this bowl. And when the thought that you're holding on to, or the attitude that you're trying to cultivate, noble thought comes into your mind, take the white stone and put it in that bowl and meditate like this. So the initial days, the monk saw at the end of the day, the meditation, the bowl was mostly full of black stones, a few white stones here and there. But over time it changed until several months later, he was beginning to see many more white stones there and fewer black stones. So the samskaras are changing. One more point regarding this. There's a saying, Evam vritti samskara chakra avattamanam aharnisham avattamanam. The wheel of thoughts and subconscious tendencies is rotating day and night. So our thoughts bubble up from our tendencies. Our tendencies means what we have programmed ourselves in this life and past lives. So from that storehouse, it bubbles up. Our thoughts in the mind, our reactions to the world, they're all conditioned by our past lives and this life also. But those tendencies are beyond our reach because we are not able to access it. What we can access right now are our present thoughts. Whatever I feel now, whatever I can think now, at the most what I can remember, those things we can access. Now, to change the tendencies, you can't go directly down into your subconscious and change them directly. What you can do is, whatever is bubbling up in the mind, notice it dies down, it goes back to those tendencies again. If we hold on, if we let those thoughts proliferate in the mind, those existing tendencies will be strengthened. However, if you deliberately, through spiritual practice, when these thoughts are coming up and we are aware, that requires meditation and quietness. We are aware of what kind of thoughts are coming up and we deliberately replace them with positive thoughts. It could be the mantra. It could be just the opposite. A thought of anger can be replaced by a thought of peace. A thought of restlessness can be replaced by a thought of calmness and serenity, like that. If you keep deliberately doing that, and that takes effort, but whatever you replace, that one will go back into your subconscious and slowly change the storehouse of samskaras over a long period of time. It's not easy, but then we will ourselves see noble, positive, peaceful, joyous thoughts bubbling up from within. Then you are in the middle of the stream. Then it will, the boat will go merrily on its own without too much of hard work, Last point. Sri Ramakrishna also says that he notices how these boats go into the midstream and then they raise a little sail. Even now you can see on the Ganga in front of the Dakshineshwar Kali temple or Belur Mutt. So a little sail, cloth sail they raise and it catches the wind. The wind is already there, catches the wind and it moves much faster than you would be able to row. And you don't have to do anything, you just relax. That wind is the grace of God. What we would have been able to achieve maybe if we really tried for months and years, that wind does it for us. But for that we have to surrender to God. So grace of God is also necessary.